Welcome to today's webinar with the topic iGrafx for SAP. Today, my colleague Catherine will guide you through the webinar. She works as a pre-sales team lead EMEA at iGrafx. In this role, she supports the customers and is responsible for all pre-sales activities in the EMEA region. In today's webinar, we will show you how you can successfully model the communication between business and IT. You are all muted and can ask your questions defiantly. In the course of the webinar, you can type the questions into the question window below. You can also set a hack anonymously or not anonymously. It's up to you. At the end of the webinar, we will pick up your questions. We'll plan about 30 minutes for the webinar and 15 minutes for the Q&A session. We will send you the link to the recording of the webinar after the webinar, and in this context, we will clarify open questions. This is from my side, and I hand it over to Katharina. I wish you a lot of fun at the webinar.
Yeah, thanks, Irina, for the introduction and a warm welcome from my side. As Irina already mentioned, my name is Katharina, and I will be guiding you through the webinar today. So before we start with our topic, iGrafx for SAP, and before I head into the tool and will show you the iGrafx SAP solution, I will also talk a little bit about the company itself. So for those of you who are new to iGrafx, know who is iGrafx and how long we've been in the market. So first of all, we've been in the market for quite a while. iGrafx has been founded in 1991, and that's making up 400 years of collective BPM experience that we have in all the company. And we are also globally active. So we have 3 locations around the globe: Portland, Austin, and I'm talking to you from Munich, which is the EMEA headquarter. But we also have a lot of other countries where we are active. We can enable that through a broad partner network. And also we do have a lot of consulting partners and also some consulting partners that are focused on SAP implementation projects. So we are also strategically in that initiative. We also consider ourselves not to be just a tool provider, but we do have our own customer success team. They are also located for the EMEA region here in Munich, and they can also support you with any kind of project and with any kind of implementation that you have in your company. Since we've been in the market for quite a while, we have more than 10,000 happy customers, and they use iGrafx either in the whole company or just small parts, but it's more than 10,000 customers, 2/3 of the Fortune 100 customers, and 5 of the 10 largest US banks are just 2 numbers to highlight here. Nevertheless, as you know, and probably not every one of you is in banking, so process management is used in all industries, and here are just a couple of examples of what our customers say and a couple of logos that might look familiar to you. And you can see that, yeah, we have different industries, different clients, and different sizes of clients for sure. What unites all of them is the necessity to do business process management. And well, the topic of today is especially tailored around iGrafx for SAP. So that means how can I connect my business process management with my IT process management that will happen in SAP. Before I talk about that and before I show that in our tool, I would like to talk a little about the solution portfolio of iGrafx. And as we already mentioned, it's important to map the business and IT initiatives in the company. And how can we achieve that? That's what I want to highlight in the following slide that I'm showing here. So iGrafx is more than just a drawing tool for processes. So we can do more than just diagramming. And what we can do is to highlight different challenges that might affect your business. So that usually starts with a strategy, or you have different strategies that are derived into a certain set of goals, and the goals can then be linked back to your processes. So a process might be described with a diagram or might be described in documents, might also not be described. Doesn't mean the process is not there. Processes are always there, and processes are usually performed in an organization or in various organizations that have jobs in it who are performed by employees. And based on that, an employee has responsibility for a process because he or she has a job. Might also be that the employees have certain roles, so on top of their jobs, they also support. They also do different roles. They also have different tasks, and based on that, they can also participate in additional processes. Now, what we can also do is to measure our processes. That means we do want to measure if our processes are in a good way, so we can have a certain set of performance indicators in order to assure that we achieve our goals. And the goals, the performance indicators are displayed in charts that will again help the employees to understand, is the business performing good or not? On the other hand, we also need to understand, do we have any kind of risks that are related to our processes? And if we do have the risks, so they are usually there as well, it's important to understand a certain set of requirements and enable different controls that have the possibility to mitigate our risks and to control our processes. So we will have a certain set of business rules that can then control our processes. Now that's more or less the business part around process management. So what's even becoming more important with digitization is that we also have a certain set of applications. Applications usually run on a server. Server needs a database, a network, infrastructure, and all of that also affects our processes. So it's also linked to our processes, and that makes it important to understand what kind of application is supporting which process step, how does it affect a process if an application fails, and we also need to understand all of that. Plus, we also communicate externally. You have clients, you have suppliers, any kind of third-party institute, and we can communicate through what we call work products. And then we also have here the possibility of mapping external agents. Now, all those little icons that you see here, we will see them directly in the tool as well. We call them enterprise objects, and that's what makes iGrafx unique. We do not just do diagramming. You see, diagrams is just one small part of all that building here, but we do the enterprise object modeling in order to enable all the different challenges and in order to map all the different perspectives that we have here. But also the picture that you see is not really reality, I would say, because we are not only having one process in the company, but we do have a lot of different processes and tons of jobs, employees, and even more applications. So it's important to map all of the different relationships. And maybe I do want to understand what kind of job is responsible for an application. I want to measure applications with performance indicators. And you see, it's quite a complex picture. So it's important to not lose the control in the complexity. And that's why iGrafx has developed a holistic approach. And we have different modules that can be enabled anytime that you need them or anytime that you have a new challenge in your company. You can start using that specific module. So as the topic of today is SAP optimization. SAP optimization is one of the modules. However, the module can only be used if you have the iGrafx platform already in place. The iGrafx platform is our core component. That means on the iGrafx platform, you can do web diagramming, you can do collaboration, you can do business transformation, and all of the challenges that we just saw. And anytime you need something else like SAP integration, like performance management, like risk and compliance, you can enable that module, and then you have the capability to do so. So speaking about SAP optimization, what does that mean, and what will be the topic that we're going to cover today in the webinar? So the topic we are focusing on is the SAP integration with iGrafx. And we do the SAP integration through the SAP Solution Manager 7.2. That means we do have a bidirectional interface that can connect from the iGrafx Solution Manager, so we can import information from the SAP Solution Manager into iGrafx. Then we can map information in iGrafx and then put the information back to the Solution Manager. So first of all, why do we need to do that? Well, there needs to be a common understanding of the landscape between IT and business. So for business users, it's important to communicate requirements, controls, change requests in the context of their business processes. However, the IT folks, they need to understand the impact of change to SAP systems, also related to higher level processes. So they have two different scopes, and we need to provide a common understanding here. Now, SAP itself, they have identified that there is a need to better understand the business processes within SAP. So that means they have designed a set of best practices. So they have their own modeling capability even in the solution manager. However, and this is leading to the third point that I'm mentioning here, is that it's not enough to just map a diagram, as I already mentioned. But what we do want to achieve is to not only have a diagram, but we also want to understand what kind of risk is associated to a process, any kind of requirement that is necessary for that process. Do I have business rules? So all of that information that is for value for the business and IT users needs to be mapped as well. And this is where a tool like iGrafx comes into place, because we can reuse all of that information for our processes. And that's why we do have an import from the solution manager into iGrafx, and again an export into the solution manager of the content that we create in iGrafx. So the iGrafx platform on the left-hand side will focus on process modeling, optimization, change management, strategic business process management, and also the implementation of the business processes. Whereas on the other side, the SAP Solution Manager is in place to do the mapping of technical requirements, the development and testing, and also the SAP optimization. But they both interact with each other, and that is where we have a link between the business and IT processes and an exchange of information. So with that said, I would like to go into the iGrafx platform, and I would like to show you how the SAP integration looks like. And I will also highlight for you in the Solution Manager what kind of information do we have in the Solution Manager and what kind of information is transformed back into iGrafx. So for that, I'm now logged in to our iGrafx platform. And well, as I mentioned, the iGrafx platform is the central component that you need for doing the SAP integration. And the iGrafx platform will allow not only SAP integration, but it will allow to map all set of different processes. So usually when a person enters the iGrafx platform, you have the possibility to navigate through what we call a process landscape. So maybe you can click on Europe here, then you can navigate down through Germany, and then you might be able to select Munich here. And then the next picture that you get will be what we call a process house. So here we will have all of our business processes in one process landscape. So you have a global overview of all of your processes, and you can drill down anytime. So if you're interested in market and sell products and services, you will open the next level of your process hierarchy, and then you can click until you reach the lowest level. And in our case, the lowest level will be a BPMN 2.0 diagram, where we have now the process flow itself, plus additional information that is relevant for that specific process. Now that additional information, this is what we cover with our enterprise objects. So the enterprise objects are in that little window on the left-hand side. And this is the slide that I showed you with all the relationships. So this is where we can find all of the different relationships. So on the right-hand side, you can see the diagram. On the left-hand side, however, you can now see, well, this diagram describes a process which is called manage orders. On that process, I can track who is responsible, who's accountable, consulted, informed, what kind of IT systems are supporting that specific process. Do we have strategies, goals, requirements? So all of the information that is relevant for that specific process is stored on that enterprise object and can be reused anywhere in your process models. Now that information is usually maintained by a license type that we call architect. So an architect in iGrafx has the possibility to seed that tree structure on the left-hand side. And if we especially navigate down into the processes, we will see that we have our certain process landscape. So we have our business processes, management, core, and supporting processes. And you can drill down anytime into any process that you want to see, and you will get all of the relationships that is necessary here. Okay, with that said, and with that basis, I will now switch to the SAP Solution Manager, and I will show you what kind of information is available in the Solution Manager and how can we get information from the Solution Manager back into iGrafx. Now, the Solution Manager of SAP usually works in what we call branches, and in a branch in the Solution Manager, we also have certain SAP processes and SAP process steps. Now, the Solution Manager of SAP will then, well, the processes and the process steps can then be, by an interface, we can then import them back into iGrafx, and then we have the possibility to display the SAP processes and process steps automatically into iGrafx, so it will look like that. And that means we have the possibility to reuse all of the information that has come from the SAP Solution Manager back in iGrafx. So the information that we have now in iGrafx that has come from the interface is directly here available. And let's have a look at the process billing in ERP. So that billing in ERP process, now if I drill down, has a couple of process steps below. And these process steps, well, we can indicate or we can see that those are SAP process steps because they have this little SAP flag on them. So this little SAP flag will always indicate me that this is a SAP process step. And that means that this this process step can then be linked to a business process step as well. Now, in the meantime, sorry for the wait, but in the meantime, the Solution Manager has also been loaded. And what you can see here is now the interface of the SAP Solution Manager. And what I wanted to show you here is how it looks like in the Solution Manager. So any information that we have from SAP, our SAP processes, our SAP process steps, plus all of the transactions or executables that support a specific process or process step are stored in the Solution Manager. So you see the list of transactions that are here at the bottom of the page. And all of that information is then via the interface imported back into iGrafx. So that means going back to iGrafx, this is exactly one-to-one from the interface, and we have that information in here. Plus, we will also get the information on which transaction is supporting a specific process, which we can see here on the right-hand side. Now, the added value is that, well, on the one hand, now we can combine business processes and SAP processes, and we can also draw a diagram supporting that specific process. So let me just go to the tab which is called Describe By. And here you will see that there is already a diagram which is describing that specific SAP process billing in ERP. So let me just go to that specific diagram. And now you can see, well, this billing in ERP is performed by a logical component in SAP, and the process steps are performed like that. But what SAP doesn't tell us is that we have a decision here. So this is only visible in the diagram, and I can only track that if there is the goods issue necessary, then I have to do the process step to enter the goods issue for scrapping. If not, I can skip that step and get to the next decision. So that's displayed in the process diagram. And as well as we've seen for the business processes, we also have this little describes window on the left-hand side, where we will now be able to see the transactions that are supporting that specific process, and we can see which business process is supported by that SAP process. And we can see that this is a non-SAP process because it doesn't have the SAP flag. And this is where we can easily link now the SAP processes and the business processes in order to be able to support our business processes as well. Also, what you can see is a documented by. So here's the link back to our SAP Solution Manager because we want to have a seamless integration between the two components. That means on this specific diagram, on this specific process, I can jump back anytime to the Solution Manager. On the other hand, in the Solution Manager, there's also a reference back to iGrafx. So in order to jump to the diagram, to that specific view of the process, there's also a link back to iGrafx. So the two tools are seamlessly integrated, and you can push and pull information back and forth. Now, again, another advantage of using iGrafx here for the modeling is that anything that we do has a history. So we can track all changes that have happened on that specific diagram. And you can track anytime who changed it, when, what has been changed, what kind of a relationship has been added, when has a version been approved, for instance. And we also do have the possibility to compare different versions with each other. And that's really good to see because now we can really track if something has changed. So from one version to another, we added a process step. We might combine SAP process step with a business activity. And that's all to be seen here in this diagram comparison. So you can easily use that little slider and switch from old to new version. And you can also highlight that in that specific table. So all the changes will be tracked and listed in that table. Also, since we work with different rights and roles, you can ensure anytime that only the right people at the right time will be able to see information in iGrafx. And this is why it is important to run the cycle management as well. Cycle management means anytime I want to publish something, I have to go through an approval cycle. Approval cycle means, well, I will nominate a group or people and they will approve something. And once it is approved, it gets a green light. And a green light means it is then visible to our license type viewer. So it will be visible to any business user who has access to iGrafx. So this person can then consume the information and can then review the information in that specific process. Now, anytime you do want to make a change, you can simply go ahead and check out the diagram. So I can now start modeling, and you see it's quite easy to map a process. On the left-hand side, we fully support BPMN 2.0. And that's also another advantage here of using iGrafx or of using iGrafx in combination with the SAP Solution Manager 7.2, because the latest Solution Manager from SAP also uses BPMN or supports BPMN as an interface, which makes it possible to even export a diagram into BPMN and then import it into the Solution Manager. So you could even have a diagram in the Solution Manager embedded. However, this will not display all of the information that we have here on the left-hand side. So this is where it is necessary to still use iGrafx to have all of the information, like is there a risk or is there a requirement? All of that information is stored in here. Now, how do you store that information? So let's assume this specific process, billing in ERP, this SAP process should now also have a new relationship. So this specific process should support another internal process. So this is where an architect usually would go to the relationships and can simply click on the plus to add something, or we can go into our tree structure, maybe browse through our supporting processes, and then I'm just choosing the process perform revenue account assignment, and I can just drag and drop that process here, and then I created a new relationship. So you see, it's very easy now to combine all of that information and to have it in one central source in iGrafx, where we do have the business and IT processes combined. Now, if I do want to analyze all of that information, I could go through any process one by one. So I can click through billing and ERP, I can have a look at the next one, but there's even an easier way to do that. And this is where I can define a certain set of reports and then start analyzing my SAP process landscape. So for instance, we can use this metrics report that will now show me on the left-hand side my business processes and my business activities. And on the top, we can see our SAP processes, which are the circles, and the SAP process steps, which are which is the little man. Well, we can easily see that, for instance, the internal process create customer invoices is supported by 3 different SAP processes and process steps, meaning that, well, here is a link made to the IT processes. On the other hand, we also know that whenever a process step fails in SAP or cannot be performed, we will know which business processes will be affected by that. On the other hand, if we do want to map the gaps, so we want to understand, we do have a lot of SAP processes. So you can see a huge list of SAP processes, but on the other hand, we have a lot of gaps where not all business processes are mapped to SAP processes. That means we have to do the mapping here. So we have to find our business processes. And well, this also is some sort of quality control for you, which helps you to easily link the information together. We can also do the same view in the metrics, but with the transactions. So in the solution manager, you just saw on a process, you just saw the list of transactions, which is supporting that process. But here we have a nice metrics overview where we can see processes and process steps, all the supporting transactions. And this will now tell me that, well, if this specific transaction, batch billing, cannot be performed, the process billing in ERP will be affected because there's a link made in the SAP Solution Manager. So this is information we do not really manipulate in iGrafx. That's information which is just available in the Solution Manager because it has been defined in SAP like that. But we can provide a nice looking format with these reports to be able to have a better analysis. And if you want, you can easily download that report into Excel, and then you would even have it available offline. Also, since I mentioned, well, a diagram is not the process itself, but a diagram is supporting a specific process. We can have a report which highlights different SAP processes, the linked diagram to that specific process, and then again, the link back to our business process and the business process diagram. So we also have the different stages, and we can have the information and the link between business and IT. There's even more information in the Solution Manager. It's not only around processes and process steps. There's also the possibility to import end users and organizational units. So if that is mapped in the Solution Manager, it can also be transported through the interface. Logical components are also taken over because it's also important to understand what logical component does a process step or is assigned to a specific transaction. So that information can also be used and reused in iGrafx. Now, on top of the SAP reporting, there's much more I could show here, just a couple of highlights on additional reports that we can use in iGrafx. So the standard report I always like to show around the business process management is the classical RACI metrics. So what we can see here for our business processes is those are all of my business processes, and you can directly track who is responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. The reports are filterable anytime, so you can type something in and you will get the search results. So that makes it also easy for the end user to find information anytime and any soon. And the metrics similar to what we saw with the transactions and the processes. Now here we do have our business processes and our IT systems. So that's outside of SAP. What else do we have in the company? We might have a CRM system. We do have Excel, Outlook, all of that, also supporting different processes. And this is also some sort of impact analysis. So whenever the ERP system fails, a lot of processes will be affected. Now, what can be also initiated on top of that, and that's also a good possibility to link to your SAP initiative, is the topic of risk management. So whenever you did your processes, whenever you have assigned your resources, it might be a good step to start mapping your risks, and then you can build what we call a risk matrix. So here you have the capability now to evaluate your risks based on impact and likelihood. And this will give you a good overview of which processes have high risks. And if you map that information with SAP-related processes, you will even have more value for your SAP processes, because you will understand, well, this SAP process has a very, very high risk. So you would need to identify a control, you would need to identify a business rule in order to be able to mitigate that risk. And once you do so, in the best case scenario, you have a residual risk that is in the green area, and you will be able to mitigate the risk through a control. Or again, you can also use the reports for gap analysis. So you will see where do I not have a control in place and where would I need a control in order to mitigate a risk. All right, so far that's what we saw in the tool. Let me just go back to the presentation and just mention again that I was highlighting the iGrafx platform. We also saw the topic around SAP optimization, which means the interface with the SAP Solution Manager 7.2. And I also gave a short outlook on the risk and compliance, so the possibilities that you have around risk mapping in iGrafx. Now, before I hand over again to Irina and to see if we have any questions. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and type them into the Q&A window so that we can answer them. Before we do that, I would just talk about the deployment and hosting options that we have in iGrafx. So iGrafx either comes as software as a service or on premises. However, for the SAP interface, so the kind of integration that we saw today in this webinar, it is right now only available in the cloud version, which means in the software as a service version. It will become available on premises at a point in time. But right now, if you do want to use the SAP integration, you would have the option of either enterprise or dedicated cloud. You can connect through your web browser. So anything I did, I connected through my web browser, and we do have 4 different types of users or licenses. Well, we call them viewer, collaborator, designer, architect. I already mentioned the architect as the brain of the system, I would call. So the person or the people who define the different relationships between the enterprise objects, whereas the designer will be somebody drawing a process diagram, collaborator will be a person being able to approve a process diagram, and a viewer is just a person, a usual employee, to consume information and to inform himself about any kind of processes. People often ask why iGrafx, and I'm sure our customers agree to those points that we mentioned here, and I hope that you were able to see a couple of points in this webinar today. just to highlight a couple of things. So web-based centralized access, we've seen that we can assure to have access enterprise-wide. Advanced enterprise modeling, as I mentioned, process management is so much more than just creating a diagram. It's around all the information and understanding the different challenges that we have. And since we talk a lot about cloud and cloud provisioning, cloud availability, I also want to highlight that iGrafx is an SOC 2 certified company, and we do have standardized processes in all our business areas. And that means we also comply with any kind of security standards. So should you be interested in a cloud solution, we do have any kind of security standards as well. Okay, so I will hand over to Irina because I think she has a couple of points to mention before we get into the questions.
Many thanks, Katharina, for the detailed information to this exciting topic. Before we get to the questions, I would like to point out our events. This October 2-day long from 22nd till 23rd, we are at Europe's foremost independent business process management conference, co-located with the Enterprise Architecture Conference Europe in London. This event provides a unique opportunity to discover the latest approaches and innovate ideas to both BPM and EA and benefit from the synergies between them. If you're interested in the event or webinars, please visit our website and register. Now we will answer your questions. The first question. Do I have to use the solution manager to map information, or else what should be the leading system?
Okay, I think that question is around yeah, can I, or said the other way around, could I use iGrafx to push information into the solution manager? Yes, you could. However, usually if you have SAP in a company, usually SAP is your leading system, and iGrafx in that case will be a supporting system, will be the system to help you displaying processes, displaying process information. And this is where we highly recommend, or it should be ensured that you have information in the solution manager available, which iGrafx can reuse to map and link to your business processes. And then we would push this information and the link to iGrafx back to the solution manager. So that should answer the question, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. Is it possible to not only export data from the solution manager, but to reuse other kind of information such as performance or HR data?
Yes, that is possible. So the SAP optimization, the SAP module that we saw today was the focus on linking the solution manager to iGrafx. However, we do also provide tools that allow you to import data from other systems, which could be SAP Workflow, which could be SAP HR, which could also be any kind of CRM system or other tools. And that can be reused to display performance indicators. We can build dashboards with that. Well, we didn't really show this today because it would be too much for this whole webinar, but we do have a lot of possibilities to display that information in iGrafx as well.
Mm-hmm. How do you ensure an access to my SAP Solution Manager in a SaaS environment?
Mm-hmm. I think this question is more around, can I use cloud and on-premises combined? So the answer is yes. It just, well, iGrafx uses standard web protocols, and so we do enable communication between systems. For instance, if we do the integration between the solution manager and iGrafx, we use a REST API, which is a standard protocol for data exchange. So we also do test that in the integration project. So there should be no issue accessing information from your solution manager.
Okay, thank you. The next question. I only have visual diagrams from an early SAP project. Is it possible to create SAP information out of the diagram with iGrafx as well?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It is more around, I think, what I already mentioned, but I can imagine that this question is, so I do have a lot of old documentation where I documented some SAP processes, and now I want to feed my tool with that. So yes, iGrafx can, for instance, import Visio diagrams, and based on the Visio diagrams, we also have the possibility to create any kind of enterprise object. So there is a proposing feature for that. But since the SAP Solution Manager also uses BPMN as an exchange format, you also have the possibility to import a .bpmn file into the Solution Manager. And while you import, you can also push information, and you can also say that this specific activity box should now become an SAP process step. So it's actually possible to do that while you upload a diagram into the Solution Manager. So any old documentation that you have is not lost, but can be reused.
Okay, thank you, Katharina. We don't have any questions anymore. Thank you, Katharina, once more again, so for the interesting webinar, and thank you for your participation. So we wish you a very nice day, and we'll see you until the next webinar.
Thanks from my side, and have a great day.